In this video, I'll show you how to use the Navigator as a tool for outlining and brainstorming your idea before you start writing your screenplay. A couple notes before we start. First, I would highly encourage you not to write your screenplay in the same document that you outline and brainstorm. I'll explain why at the end of the video. Second, the Navigator is a completely different tool than the beat board in Final Draft 13. Those two tools do not talk to each other. And so if you do one thing in a beat board and one thing in the Navigator, they will not merge. And so if you want to use the outline editor and the beat board, I'll make a different video about that. But for this video, we're focusing only on the Navigator and how to use those tools to outline your script. All right, let's jump in. We're starting with a fresh document in Final Draft 13, and we have our Navigator open with 3 tabs: Script, Characters, and Script Notes. We're going to be working mostly in the Script tab. First thing to know about Final Draft for purposes of outlining is that there are 5 elements that are used in the outlining section. Outline 1 is the top tier, and I think that that is best used for acts. Outline 2 goes in 1, right? Like indent in 1, and that's good for beats. Outline 3, I use that for scenes. So any scenes within my beats or sequences or however you like to organize your scripts, that's what I would use for outline 3. Then you have summary, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a summary. And if you look here in your script tab, you have a summary column. So if I were to type something in here, this is a summary of this scene, it's going to show up here in the summary column. I can also type it in here in the Navigator itself, and it'll show up in the script. So for beats, I'll say, what's the first beat, right? Ordinary world. Ordinary world. That comes up right here in the screenplay window as well. So those are the 2 ways you can do it. The other thing that it has here, the 5th element, is notes. And notes, this is a note that I want to remember. The problem with notes is that there's no column for notes. And so there's really no way to track it visually on the Navigator. The only way to really track it is by looking at it in the screenplay itself, or in the screenplay window itself. I will also assign colors just to show you what that does. So let's move this over here, and I'm going to make this red. I'm going to make the Act 1 red, the beats are going to be green, and the scenes are going to be purple. If you go to the Show Hide button up here, the little eyeball, if you have your default, I have my default ribbon up here just to make things easier, because if you are new to Final Draft 13 and you just open up a document, this is what your ribbon's going to look like. So in Show Hide, you can hide your entire outline by saying Hide Outline in Script. Now, refresh is an issue sometimes for Final Draft. So if I close the Navigator and reopen it, you'll see that it disappears now because it's hidden. And if it's hidden in the script, it's hidden in the Navigator. So let's go back and show the outline in the script. Again, refresh issues here. I'm going to hide the Navigator, open up the Navigator, and there everything is. What are these colors used for? Well, they have this function here. They have this tool in Final Draft 13 called structure lines. If you're a visual person and you like to see how everything is laid out, this is the way to do it. You assign different colors for different things. And each act, so like if I were to click on here on the acts, you see this box around it? Everything within the act is in there. So if I have a second act, Act 2, and let's put more beats in here, right? Act 2, beat 1, Act 2, beat 2, and then let's say midpoint, Act 3. Do the same here. Act 3, beat 1, Act 3, beat 2. This gives you like a good feel of how the color system works, and you have to assign it for every act individually so it doesn't carry over. So if I want Act 2 to also, oh, here, and look, the order's all messed up. So I'm just going to go and I'm going to hit order. Now the order is sequential, and I don't have to worry about that. For Act 2, let's say I'm going to make this blue. For Act 3, I'm going to make it yellow. Each act is visually represented, and when you click on Act 1, it tells you everything in that act. If you click on Act 2, it tells you everything in that act. So that's a good visual way of seeing like where you are in the screenplay and how much real estate is being dedicated to each part of your script. If you see that your screenplay has too many scenes in Act 2A, then that's something that you would have to work on or condense. Or maybe your Act 2 isn't fleshed out enough, and you can see that because the window is just too small for Act 2 for how much it's supposed to impact the story. I don't use the colors. I find them a little distracting because I have to manually input them. So I'm going to turn them off. And I'm also going to get rid of this column. I like my Navigator to be as clean as it can be. And I think the only things you really need are your order, page, script, and summary. So like I said, using the notes is problematic here because you can't visually see it in the Navigator. How do you get around that? Script notes. Instead of using the notes element, I am going to right-click here and do add insert script note, and the body of the script note is going to be, this is a really important note about the plot. And like I said in my prior video, you can modify this however you want. And so this is going to be my Act 1 plot note. If I'm collaborating or if I'm brainstorming and I just want to throw something in there like, maybe this will be interesting, or maybe, I don't like the way that my partner wrote this. I like this idea better. This is how you would name those notes. And then you can come in here, and from my prior video, I already created a character and a plot type. So I don't have to do new type of note, but I will here for demonstration purposes. I'm going to do this as first draft notes is going to be the type of notes, and I want the color to be mint. So now I have a mint note here instead of a note as far as elements go. If I click on it, I can see it, click off of it. If I go to the script notes tab, there it is. There's the color, there's the note, and there's the title. So that's a better way of organizing your screenplay than using the notes element. The other thing that I don't really love about the default settings in Final Draft 13 is that everything's the same color. And nothing is titled the way that I want them titled. And when I hit return, it doesn't act the way I want it to act. Here's what I mean by that. Let's go to Act 2. I like to break my Act 2 up into two sections, Act 2A and Act 2B, separated by the midpoint. So if I do Act 2A and I hit return, then it takes me to the summary element. And that's fine if I want to add a summary. This is where the first mission begins. It shows up in the summary column under Act 2A, but I like more control than that. I want my elements to stay where they are until I choose to change them. So that's where formatting comes in. Let's go up here to Format and Elements. You have your 5 elements here that are relevant for outlining and brainstorming. I'll leave summary the way it is, but I'm going to go to Outline, and I'm going to rename it by coming up here to the top, and this is going to be renamed as Acts. Now I'm going to go to Outline 2, and I'm going to rename this to be Beats. Outline 3 is going to be Scenes. And I'll leave notes the way it is. Let's start with Acts. You can see here, next element, enter return equals summary. So if I hit return, it's going to go to the summary element. I want it to go to Acts. I just want to stay at Acts. And then I can change it when I want to change it. For Beats, I want it to stay at Beats. And you see the refresh here, that's sometimes a problem because I did change the notes, but it didn't really refresh it here. So if I press OK and go back into Format Elements, now it's in there. And for Scenes, now it's in there. So sometimes you got to exit out and then re-enter into the window if it's not working right. So it's not you, it's not your computer, it's the software. Final Draft is a little glitchy when it comes to changing names and updating the Navigator. So refreshing is going to be your best friend when you're setting up the initial how you want your page to look. All right, so I think I have everything in place here. I have acts, return goes to acts, beats goes to beats, scenes goes to scenes, summary stays at summary. But everything is the same color by default. I don't like that. I want to be able to look at the page. I'm a visual person. I want to be able to look at the page and know if I'm looking at a beat or a scene or whatever. So let's change some colors. I'm going to leave acts as the default color. Beats, I'm going to go into font, set font, and here's my color. Let's make this color this like dark pink kind of color. For scenes, I'm going to go into set font, and I'm going to make this like kind of like a greenish, mintish kind of color. And for summary, now I'll go in there and I'm going to make summary orange. Okay. It updates on its own. And now you can see why that's so useful, because I can look at my page and I can see exactly what I'm doing by color. So if I'm making scenes here, I can say for ordinary world, establish Matt as awesome. In all of my videos, I just make myself awesome, and then I make my friend Brian establish Brian as being even more awesome than Matt. And it all updates here in the Navigator, so you could just look at the Navigator when you're done and see where you want things to happen. So let's say in my ordinary world section, I want to establish B story with Rachel. That's my wife. But now that I'm looking at the mapping of my story here, I want to do that before I establish Brian as being cooler than me, because I don't want the audience to be rooting for Rachel to get with Brian instead of getting with me. So I'm going to drag and drop this beat up, or that scene up, and it changes here, and here it is changed in the script view as well. So you can have all of these summaries in here. Establish Matt as awesome. I'll do the summary in here. Matt is really great at teaching things. And for Brian, let's say Brian is effortlessly, is that a word? Cool. With an exclamation point. I'm going to use up one of my exclamation points. So I can come in here, and each scene is established. What I want to do in the scene is established. Now, I want to add a note, right? Let's add a note here, but I don't want to do it by right-clicking. Let's go into the Script Notes tab, and I'm going to put my cursor by Establish Matt is Awesome, do a new script note, and the title is going to be Matt Intro Note. And the note is going to be, make sure to make Matt cool, but not aloof. And I have my color here. I have my color set, and I have to move it over here to see what the type is. This is still going to be my first draft type, but I can change it if I want to character. And I'm going to have the color set at blue. So when you look over here, all of my character beats are going to be blue, and I can click on them and see what they are. As I mentioned in my previous video, one of the cool things about script notes is that you can run a report on it, and you can do whatever you want here. I'm going to leave the default settings as they are because they're pretty good, and they bring up this final draft document that you can edit, and it has the page with the note. So that's a basic rundown of how you can customize the elements in Final Draft 13 to use the Navigator in a way that feels more organic, and where the workflow is just seems smoother. The reason I said that you shouldn't write the screenplay in the same document as your outline is because it's very easy to lose track of where you are on the page. Let me show you. If I were to put a scene in here, in my ordinary world here, This is part of the actual script. Everything else is not. Matt works at his computer, typing away and whistling a tune. Matt, I am literally whistling while I work. Another exclamation point. So in the screenplay, I have it where I want it, even though it's actually, you know what, it should be under established Matt is awesome. So I'm going to drag and drop that to here. It's where it's supposed to be. Established Matt is awesome. This is my summary. And then here's my actual scene. When I hide my outline, and again, remember, refreshing is an issue, so hit the Navigator button, wait a second, and then hit it again, and it shows up. Now the only thing you can see is what the actual writing on the page is. So I'm working and I've got my flow going on. Brian enters and rolls his eyes. Man, you're always whistling. Ever think about humming? Brian laughs to himself and leaves. Interior, Brian's office day. Brian's office is way cooler than Matt's. He's got cool posters on the wall and all sorts of other cool things. Why? Because Brian is cooler than Matt. Great. I was in a rhythm. I was working. I was writing. But now let's turn the outline back on and see why this is such a problem. Show outline in script. So here's the problem. I have in my scenes for my beats, establish B story with Rachel and establish Brian as being cooler than Matt. But I didn't put my scene where it was supposed to go. And so I have to come back into my Navigator and drag it to where it's supposed to be. This can very quickly become a very cluttered, very messy Navigator and outline. And I'd be spending more time reorganizing things I've written than just writing. So for that reason, I think it's a good idea to have your outline separate from your script. One more thing about the beat board and how it doesn't interact with the Navigator. If I show my outline editor, the script will populate. And since I've attributed colors to certain things, you can see the colors here on the script line. This will populate. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But nothing is up here. Nothing is up here. Why? Because when I go to the beat board view, there's nothing here. And so if I wanted to replicate this outline in this beat board, I'd have to create beats and then drag them here into the outliner, right? So it's not, and I'm not going to do any more beatboard stuff in this video, but that's why you can't kind of go back and forth between them, because they're independent of each other. I'm going to hide the outline editor. I'm going to close the beatboard by going to views, go to page view, don't go to normal view or speed view or anything like that. And here you're back into your script. Pick a tool and stick with it. Don't mix things up. And if you do that, then you'll have success in your outlining and in your brainstorming. If you found this video useful, come on back to the channel. And if you have any questions or comments, put them in the comment section and I'll make sure to respond. In my next video, I'll show you how you can use the Navigator when you're actually writing your screenplay to help you stay organized and continue the brainstorming while you're writing and reorganizing. So, until next page, I'm Matt Weiner, and this is Fade In, a channel dedicated to the art of screenwriting.